We're back with another series of the Inspiring Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience and technology. For Series 8, we're raising the bar, pushing boundaries, sparking bold ideas, and challenging the CX status quo. Expect fresh perspectives, fearless discussions, and a celebration of women driving change in our industry. I'll be your host, Claire Muscat, and in today's episode, I'll be talking to a seriously inspiring lady from the UK about something we will all experience at some point in our careers, the challenges of the job search. A powerhouse in CX strategy, she's an accredited CX and Prince2 professional with a customer-first mindset. Passionate about embedding customer focus into brand and digital development, she drives customer-centric growth through design-led thinking. From managing over 100 store developments to cross-directorate CX programs, continually shaping and elevating the brands she works with. Allow me to introduce you to today's inspiring guest, Katie Costello. Hi, Katie.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the Inspiring Women in CX podcast. How are you today?
Oh, I'm really well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited for this episode. And listeners, you're in for a treat today. So, Katie, let's just jump straight in there because I'm sure our audience would love to know a little bit more about you and how you've ended up where you are today.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm quite well versed in this question at the moment because I'm on the open job market. Okay, a bit about me. So I've had quite a long and progressive career at Waitrose across a number of different roles. So a big chunk, I suppose, of that has been at the heart of leading and operating our branches in Waitrose. And I suppose I really found that rewarding, being a branch manager, leading a team. I love focusing on continuous improvement, being at the heart of an operation, really at the coalface with the customer. It's amazing what you can learn and feed that back in. So I loved my time as a branch manager, but I made the move over into the centre just over 10 years ago, and I basically went over to set up and establish the store development programme. So this was orchestrating all the activity across planning, design and concept development with other stakeholders. So at its peak, that programme was looking after 100 projects worth £70 million of capital investment. So it was quite a project and quite a programme, but thoroughly enjoyable. I then moved it more into sort of innovation roles, both as a proposition change lead and a proposition lead. So being involved in leading projects around helping customers shop more sustainably, but also how to work with John Lewis to increase brand presence across both the brands. So that was really interesting. And then Natalie, my sort of last role within Waitrose was CX within CX is sort of management and planning. And I suppose really it was a role where I was learning constantly, but I really made it my goal to not only sort of embed a CX management approach into Waitrose, but also to really shine a light on what the as-is experience was and really, I suppose, show that you need a vision to work towards. So a real sort of reward for me at the end was that I was the interface to an external consultancy that's helped Waitrose set out what that to-be vision is. And I've talked about learning. I've done CX Academy diploma. Obviously found you guys, which has been absolutely amazing. But I have made the decision. I did leave Waitrose in January. I've spread my wings, and I'm on the market looking for a full-time role. But I have been freelancing, which I never thought I'd do. I never thought I'd be doing that if you'd asked me this time last year. But thoroughly enjoying it. So that's kind of a little whistle-stop tour of me.
Oh, I've got so much in common, and I know you and I have talked about these things at great length, but I also started my career in operations as well. I was in hospitality, and my experience as a general manager of an operation and then moving into head office, it gives you such a grounding, doesn't it? In reality,
yes,
that is literally priceless. And we're both retailers, so I was previously head of CX at Sainsbury's. We did quite similar roles at times, like looking after the propositions and the experience design. But again, like the value that like people in head office who'd run the stores or worked on the shop floor brought to every single conversation was absolutely, was just priceless. I'd say that word, priceless.
It is.
Yeah. And did you say 20 years at Waitrose?
It's a little bit more, actually.
More?
It was 25 and a half in the end. Yeah.
You must have started when you were 5 years old.
Oh, I was just before my 16th birthday, actually.
Yeah, but that's a long tenure, right? And like to have worked in one organization that has like amazing values, really, you know, it's a partnership, isn't it, with the colleagues and the culture. And obviously I love Waitrose as a shopper. You know, really like prestigious proposition in the retail space. It must have been quite hard, I guess, to walk away.
Hard. And it was really hard to walk away. And 6 months on nearly, I don't have any regrets, and I never have. I wanted to be brave. I wanted to, some people sort of say, scratch that itch, and I did. And I don't have any regrets. There's definitely a tinge of sadness still, I won't lie, because it's such a massive part of my life. And I loved working for Waitrose, but I knew that if I wanted to grow, the best thing for me was to do that outside of Waitrose, which is what I've done.
Yeah, just incredibly brave decision. And I guess I also really feel that too. Like I was only 5 years at Sainsbury's, but that's the kind of place where you could have a job for life, isn't it, and move up the ranks and stuff. And to walk away from like the shiny job title and the prestige of working for one of the UK's biggest brands, there is a bit of kind of redefining your identity, isn't there, after being so intrinsically linked to such a big and well-known brand. But we thought it would be a great opportunity for you to bring some of your, I suppose, experience about being open to work and being in that kind of process now, or like figuring out what I want to do next and who am I now and what kind of role do I want. And obviously there are the logistical challenges of some of those things along the way. And obviously I've been with you kind of behind the scenes hearing all this stuff myself, and I just thought it'd be really powerful to share like what's going on for you and your experience with other women, which at the moment there are a lot in the job market, especially women that have been in the tech space with the huge amount of layoffs that are happening. And I know like we've had this really big influx of women on scholarships who are in career transition at the moment. So I think this is a really important conversation, and one that we've not had before. So thinking about our audience that, you know, either are at this moment looking, you know, open to work, or those who might be considering, you know, making those kind of big brave moves and seeking something different from their careers, how would you advise them to really maximize their opportunities whilst being in that transitional period? So I'd love to share, or I'd love you to share a bit more about like the job search itself, but also some of like the more emotional points around, you know, staying strong, keeping motivated. And invariably what happens in recruitment processes is, I suppose, dealing with rejections, right? And I know at previous times when I was searching for jobs, not even getting your foot in the door with an application.
It'd
be brutal, and obviously with someone that's got your incredible experience and credibility, that is definitely their loss. But it would be great to share, I think, a little bit more about that journey. So I'll shut up and let you talk.
Oh, thank you. No, I'd love to share because, you know, well, like 12 months ago, it's coming up to 12 months, suddenly I found myself me and my whole team in a redundant situation, and it was quite a shock. So I suppose, you know, you can find yourself in a situation for lots of different reasons, and I suppose my position was I kind of already made the decision that I did want to go, but then suddenly the carpet was ripped out from under my feet, and suddenly, oh gosh, I'm actually now facing into this. So I suppose I do come from it from I suppose I was quite lucky, and I had a long notice period, and I had time, and I suppose I really appreciate that not everyone's in that situation, and so I'm mindful of that when I sort of speak to you guys today. That, you know, when I've spoken to other people through Wix and elsewhere in my network, where you know, they haven't got the time that I've had, and you know, I'm very grateful for that. But I appreciate that it's not everyone's in that situation. But I just wanted to kind of talk through some of the things that I've learned, because I've never been in this situation before, and you know, I suppose just things that have stuck with me that I wanted to share. And I think first thing first is kind of how you sort of come to terms with knowing, like, who am I, and like, what have I got to offer, and what have I got to give, and just kind of understanding that in yourself so that you can be confident in like sharing that. And I made the decision to get some help with sort of articulating that. So, and I know this is, I've quickly learned that not everyone like is too like pro this, but I did get some help with having my CV written for me, and it was not one of these funny old style where you plug into a computer, you don't speak to a human, and suddenly something pops out the other end. I had an amazing experience with this lovely lady called Jenny, who runs a company called Interview Fit, and it was absolutely fantastic from start to finish, and it very much felt like a collaborative process. But what she did for me was able to kind of bring outside pair of eyes into something which I was so engrossed in within Waitrose, of not really understanding how I could be perceived externally. So that really, really did help me. And it gave me the confidence to kind of know who I was and what I wanted to do. And I think, you know, that really helped me sort of speak to my network and speak to the wonderful ladies within Wix around, actually, look, I'm thinking about doing this, and, you know, this is what I'm thinking. And it's amazing how quickly your network can then grow and grow and grow just from having conversations like that. I also was connected quite early on, and Claire, you were amazing with this, with some recruiters, especially around within CX space, and a lot of them are within Wix, which is amazing. And each of them offered me something different in terms of advice, you know, really giving their time to sort of share what they could do to help. And it was a really human experience. And like one in particular stood out, so Kerry
Sadale.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, she's just this fireball of energy. I really, really, like, she has given me so much time, even if it's just to ring and say hello, how are you getting on. But she said to me early on, and this is like something that really stuck with me, is like, write down what it is you're looking for in your next role. Like, what is really, really important? Like, what do you value? And I have to say, like, I've stood by that. I did that, and I stood by it, and that has massively helped me through my job search process. So I'm very grateful to Kerry for that amazing advice. And you know, what the recruiters will say is, you know, you do have to adapt your CV for every job that you're looking at, and you do need to do that. You need to tailor it. And I think if you've got confidence in knowing what you've got to offer and like what you're looking for, that really helps you with that process. So investing that time in doing that. And then I would say, like, being ready for the interview process, because I was so rusty. I mean, I'd never been on like the open job market. I've been, you know, obviously interviewing within jobs within Waitrose and John Lewis, but never like externally, and for a long, long time. And, you know, I was totally rusty. And I suppose I don't want to get myself into that position again. So I've kind of got a technique now where I want my, you know, I'm being true to myself. I want to keep that, you know, I suppose, up to date and relevant, so that if I'm in a situation that I found myself in again, I'm ready. And I'd really recommend people to do that. And I did do some interview coaching, and I also spent time sort of understanding what kind of questions were going to be asked at the interview, both competency questions, but also non-competency based questions, like all those horrible questions that come up. And if you're prepared for them, like, it makes you feel so much more confident. So I've had the question, talk to me about Katie on like a really bad day. And I'd like, if I hadn't have prepared for that, I'd have been like, oh my goodness, I have no idea. Like, because you obviously, you know what you're like on a really bad day, but you don't want to tell.
You don't want everyone to know.
Yeah. So I suppose what that coaching did was face into some of those horrid questions that you do get, and like own them, and like say, yeah, well, actually, and what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you guys, is I've got that original set of typical competency and non-competency based questions. So I'd love to share that for the sort of the library on Wix. If anyone else would benefit from seeing those, it's certainly helped me. So I'm more than happy to share those after this.
We would absolutely love that. What a great resource to add to the library.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I mean, the good old STAR technique and the like. But one other thing I will share on when I post this is I had an interview. I was in an interview process, quite a long one, with this amazing hiring manager, and she gave me some amazing feedback afterwards, in terms of, not that the feedback like was completely all amazing, but the time she gave me, because that's rare that you get time. And she gave me some really constructive feedback, but for me that was amazing feedback, because it was so rich for me to then use and adapt my approach, etc. And she called it competency bingo, and she basically had like a series of like little sentences or little few words that she would always try and get into her STAR technique. So like, situation, task, action, result. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that's amazing, like doing that. Like I went from one interview not doing that and then another one doing it, and it really helps you really. So
can you give us an example?
So I've demonstrated my leadership style by or I've created a data-driven decision by so real sort of like snappy. I took ownership by but it just helps you.
It's action words.
Waffle.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So
and do you pick those like kind of competencies from the job description? So you're like pulling out the same words? Because I remember working for a very big company, and basically that you got given a sheet and it was like bingo. So you'd be like literally like, which words do you want to hear? And then you'd be like scoring. The relevance to the job description and the competencies that are the requirements of the job, basically. Like once I understood that, I was like, oh my god, any interviews I'd ever done, I was doing them all wrong. Like to know that it was like the scoring process in people's minds.
Totally,
and the more you replay the words back, right, the more assured they'll be. If I'm hearing that competency or that leadership skill or that like specific example of the experience we're looking for, they can tick those boxes in their mind or on the paper or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
But sometimes I think we approach these things in how we want to tell the story, don't we, rather than how stakeholder meetings where we're trying to pitch something, or client conversations where we're trying to help them understand the approach. Like we have to not make it about like ourselves necessarily, and in the interview process you are talking about yourself, but still trying to think about what is it that they need to hear from me in that instance. That's a really, really good one. Sorry to interrupt your listening, but I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about Wix. We're the world's first online membership community for women in customer experience. Our mission is clear, and that's to unleash the power of women to lead the future of human-centred business. Working in CX can feel lonely at times. We're often single-handedly trying to change the way organisations think and behave about customers. On our paid platform, you can discover a vibrant tribe of fellow female professionals, find support from knowledgeable peers, learn best practices from experts and practitioners, and be inspired to up your game through leading-edge CX and EX thinking. If you feel like you aren't making enough progress with your CX objectives, or unsure about what your next move looks like, or struggling to achieve your career ambitions, you're not alone. To learn more about membership, see how women are progressing personally and professionally with the support of the #1 community in CX, you can apply to join us today by visiting www.womenincx.community/membership. I really hope I get to see you there soon. So thinking about, I guess, more of the emotional side of coping with being open to work and this kind of being in career transition, you've given some really amazing examples of, spending that time to get to know who you are, what you stand for, what you value, being able to help, navigate that job search from a place of confidence about who you are and what you want. I think that's, such brilliant advice. Talked about, reaching out for help, networking, meeting recruiters, getting feedback, investing in coaching and CV writing. But there's the mindset bit, isn't there, that you can't really get help with, except perhaps in therapy. But there's a huge amount of resilience required, isn't there, to kind of stay positive and in a good space when there's so much uncertainty. Could you share with the audience a little bit more about what that part has been like,
Yeah,
and what advice you have for navigating the emotional side of the
100%.
career
Yeah,
search?
you're absolutely right. And especially when, when you're looking for a job, it's quite a big percentage of the reasoning for that is that you, for some reason or other, have not got the job you were in before. And, I'm talking, this is my own experience. So I had quite a lot of emotional baggage that I've had to make peace with, because, with my situation. And I think the other thing I wasn't prepared for is how patient you have to be. So I left Waitrose in January, and if someone was to tell me, oh, like at the end of May, like you still won't be employed, I would have been like, oh my goodness, like I cannot be in that situation. But I'm fine. Like I'm freelancing. I feel okay, like about the situation, but I understand that that's not like everyone's situation, and I think that's the importance of like understanding and going into this that you have to be patient, and that's hard. Like when someone says we're going to go really quick with this job, like we're going to interview, then we're going to like this, and then like literally 3 months later you're still in the process. I'm just like, oh, but I thought this was going to be quick. It's now 3 months later. And I think that's why I really sort of thought I need to do something. I was getting bored, and I sort of then went into, okay, let's do something. Let's do some freelancing, and like I'm really enjoying it, if I'm honest, and learning loads, whilst also they're fully appreciative that I am looking for employment, like full time on the books, as such is my preference. So yeah, I think the other thing is, and early on, so this is before I was freelancing, like I used to like drop the kids off at school and then I used to sit at the computer. I'll be like, oh my God, like I haven't got a job. What do I need to do now? And I've only got this many applications in, and you could just spend the whole day like just scrolling through LinkedIn. And so what I did is I read this amazing book, which I'll post this, but it's a guy called Simon Gray wrote it, and it's called like, I suppose, executive job search, like top tips for an executive job search. And it was an amazing book. It really helped me kind of ground myself into like what I was facing into. And what I loved about it is it helped sort of give you advice on how to like spend your time looking for a job. So almost, and for me, I needed to kind of give permission to myself. It's okay to go and spend a day in London with my mum. Like I don't have to spend 5 days a week sitting, doing various things. So I kind of split my time, and I had, and this, it's just how I like to work. I like to be organised personally myself. But, like, okay, the morning I'm going to spend time doing some networking, speaking and having some virtual coffees with people. In the afternoon, I'm going to put that application in. I'm going to have that chat with that recruiter. And I just sort of split my time. So it made me feel comfortable that I was doing everything I can, but also like enjoying the opportunity that I wasn't working as well. So that's probably sort of things that come to mind when you ask me that question.
Yeah. Since there's so much judgment and pressure we put on ourselves, though, isn't there? When we make transitions and, with the redundancy situations, or, when it's not been 100% your choice, not in your case, for example, necessarily because you'd already made up your mind, but that feeling of like a rug being pulled when you put into a redundancy situation. It happened to me like earlier in my career when I was working. I'm not going to say for who, but the when they do like the restructuring and like roles go down to one, and there was me and someone else who did something similar. They were going to have to choose between me and my work bestie about who was going to get the job. And I remember going through the whole redundancy consultation process, and I was only in my early 20s and just feeling so vulnerable through it. And then when I got the news that I wasn't going to be picked, the feedback that I got from the head of the department was, I'm an ideas guy, and actually I don't need more smart women in my team going forward. I need people that are just going to get on and do the job. So I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? and the knock to my confidence that I experienced after that, I think, now almost 20 years later, I'd approached it completely differently, and I'd feel completely differently about it because I've developed that kind of like maturity and self-assurance that I never had at that time, to have seen that for what it was. And actually it became my biggest opportunity. Like if I had stayed there and got that job, I don't think I'd be where I am today. It was the catalyst that enabled me to go and take my first job with customer experience in the title. Bearing in mind it was a long time ago, these jobs were rare. Because what I was trying to do was basically create strategies for customer experience in a company that wasn't ready for it. So you only get to say that, don't you? It was a gift to be made redundant or to have lost my job or whatever. Like retrospectively, once you've got to that next stage. But I guess I would just encourage the openness of mind to say, like, not to judge those kinds of situations as necessarily bad, because what comes next, you don't know yet. But what comes next and the steps that you take following a loss like that could actually be the catalyst for a better future that you never could have imagined if you just stayed where you are. And even with Women in CX, it came from a loss. It came from my consulting business going down the pan in the pandemic when we were no longer able to travel, and I'd created this life for myself where I was a digital nomad, and all my clients were in like Australia and New Zealand and places like that physically got taken away from me. But it led me to starting this podcast, which and it eventually became starting an online community that's now a huge amazing organization making a difference all over the world. So if anyone listening is out there right now and feeling that way of I'm going through this bad thing, this is bad, there must be something wrong with me, is just to remember that actually not to judge the situation as bad right now, because who knows how long, but you'll be looking back and going, that was the thing that led me to where I am today. And most of the time it ends up being a positive story, doesn't it? Those difficult moments in life.
100%, completely agree. Yeah,
throwing my 10 pence worth in there. No. So thinking about the lessons, I guess, that maybe you'd taken from spending such a long time working in one company, is there anything like specifically that you've brought with you into the job search from your long tenure?
Yes. And so I knew I wanted to leave like probably about 6 months before like the announcements all came. So I'd already sort of focused on, like, I knew I needed to get some more confidence. So I'd spent like time investing in building out my network, learning, reading lots of books, meeting lots of people, going to lots of like free events, just to like feel part of the conversation and feel more confident. So although the redundancy process was very, very hard, and it felt quite personal at times and it hurt definitely, I kind of had to make peace with that. But I think I had to kind of show like the positive of working somewhere for a long time, and I think that's what I felt was like a disadvantage for me, that I'd only worked for one company. And I suppose doing the like coaching, interview coaching, it kind of started to me to switch it to actually it has been a positive working for an amazing company. I've had so many different opportunities which I've jumped at, I've learned so much, and this is who I am now as a result. But it kind of gave me the confidence when someone said, oh, and pretty much every interview is like, so why have you left Waitrose, and why have you only done that? And to be able to say, well, and I own this and I know my answer to that question because I'm prepared. And I think also what helped is like some amazing people, I've got a few names to shout out actually.
Do it.
But going to like the open network events, like, and I love the ones where you go and you say like, is anyone got anything to talk about? And I, we had one, and I just said, oh, I'm feeling like this because I'm about to leave Waitrose, and I'm quite scared about it. Oh my gosh, just like the like emotional support, the advice that came flooding through. I met a lovely lady called Marianne King.
You mean the Women in CX
yes,
networking events, the ones that we host on the platform? Oh, yeah, sorry,
yes,
got you.
Yeah, the ones you
I
organised.
was there. I remember.
Were there?
Yeah.
I know. And I went, I worked for Microsoft for 25 years, and it's fine, Katie. It's fine. And, we've met up and gone for lovely walks, and but it's so lovely to speak to someone who has done that. And I can always remember conversation you rung me, Claire, and said it's okay to grieve leaving Waitrose, and as soon as you said that word, I was like, oh my god, I feel so sad about it. So that has just summed up exactly how I feel. So that massively helped me. So thank you. But speaking of I spent some amazing time with Susanna, who's part of Wix, and doing strengths analysis. She's done an amazing. I was her guinea pig, apparently. But I was just like, my goodness, what I've got out of this is utterly amazing.
Susanna Simmons, she's brilliant. Yeah, I love her.
Brilliant. Ellie, my past colleague at Waitrose, Faith, when I've spent so much time talking to each other. We're doing very different things, but it's great to have that person just to kind of talk to. And I suppose it got me to a place of actually I can confidently talk about why I've made this decision. And I think that really helps when you go into an interview. And I don't have any regrets. I have made peace with it all. I do feel a bit sad. I'm not going to lie. I still feel that sadness of now being away from something that I loved so much. But I think it is about finding the story of that confidence and the positives of being somewhere so long and being able to share that at interview, and that goes back to being prepared and all of that kind of stuff.
I was going to ask you how has being part of a community impacted you personally and professionally, but I think you just answered that one, didn't you? Meeting incredible people who have been so supportive and
so supportive
for that confidence boost.
Yeah.
So my only other question really before we sum up was to ask you about one barrier or challenge you've overcome to be the woman you are today. I think you've really beautifully explained one in the context of this interview, but is there anything else you'd like to share about the times that have shaped you?
Yeah, I think as I said, I knew I wanted to leave to almost grow. I was so part of the furniture. I didn't like that. I didn't like the feeling of being that. And I wanted to have the confidence to step out of the shadows, I suppose, and believe more in myself. And I had this piece of advice that a lovely lady at Waitrose gave me, and she sat me down and she's like, Katie, you need to keep your stilettos on, take the slippers off and go. And she gave me that advice. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be challenged and pushed and feel I don't know, just more motivating than I was feeling at the time. And she said that in that sentence, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I suppose
Katie Costello stilettos. I love that.
I got a lot from the Imposter Syndrome series that you guys have been really focusing on, I have to say. Especially the one right at the start where the guys that were really kindly sharing their time sort of categorized the different types. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's how I interpreted it. And that really helped me sort of break that down. And I think that's really helped me. It's been massively eye-opening. So I think, that barrier challenge has all been about me feeling more confident, feeling my role in terms of the conversation that I could be part of. And I don't think I'm alone in.
You're not 100% not. And I'm remembering back to the workshop that was with Deanna Avis and Natalia was the imposter syndrome kind of intro, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and I remember that exercise as well, where they were saying that typically you'll fall into these characters that are representative of different types of imposter thoughts and perfectionism. So being the superwoman that feels like you have to do absolutely everything and be busy all of the time and, be the best mum and the best career woman and the best, whatever your situation is. And that everybody needs help all of the time and you're going to do that. And that immense pressure that would come with trying to do everything and for everybody, or the perfectionist where, and I definitely feel the perfectionist one more than the others, even though I see myself in most of them actually. But that, like, it's got to be a perfect, I've got to do this task, but it has to be like 110%, and I have to do 110% in everything that I do, otherwise it's not worth doing. And how that leads to like procrastination and the bad thoughts around judging yourself, right? So yeah, and like it's awesome that now, again, as you said, it's in the resource library for anyone who comes next to be able to watch.
I really recommend that.
Yeah, but I think my reflections on this conversation are definitely, there's a lot of practical aspects to being on the job search. You shared some really practical, tangible advice around taking that time to think about, who am I, what do I stand for, what do I value, what am I looking for, so you can be as selective as possible on the job search. Thinking about getting help where you need it, so whether that's joining a community. Shout out any women that are currently out of work. You can join Women in CX for free for 3 months, and we'll support you like we did Katie, to help you through career transition. But also, like, if you can afford it, to invest in coaching, CV writing. Those things really make a difference. But like managing your emotions and being kind to yourself during what is a period of maximum uncertainty and not knowing where you're going to end up. Remembering to try not to judge whether the situation that you're in is bad, because it might be the catalyst that leads you to the good. And that advice around patience, because some of these processes take such a long time, right? And if you're in a place of judgment of yourself and pushing, like you said you were, to be like, oh my God, I have to get a job immediately after I leave another company, or it says something about me. Abandoning those kinds of thoughts is the only way that you can healthily get through the more challenging times when we're dealing with uncertainty. So I think that's been hugely valuable. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated it, and the time to reflect. And Katie, I know you're in the process for all kinds of things now and enjoying the freelancing, but whoever gets to have you in their team next are going to be a seriously lucky leader and a lucky organisation. So yeah,
thank you.
If you
would just say, Kyle, that if anyone's watching or listening that is not like in the situation, but they know someone that is, like, just like reaching out to them, like, it makes such a difference, because I'm sort of a strong believer of paying it forward. So I'm now, when I was in the original sort of redundancy situation, I lent a lot on people that had been in the situations 18 months before me. And now there's another massive restructure going on in Waitrose at the moment, and I've got colleagues and friends of mine that are now in the situation I was in 12 months ago. So I'm a strong believer of paying what I've taken from other people's advice forward. So I really recommend that.
Yeah, and that was amazing parting words to finish on. And yeah, I think it really is a reflection, isn't it, of the kind of spaces that communities like Women in CX bring, of all those women who are all paying it forward to one another on a number of different topics. Absolutely. And when someone receives that help, they're all then off paying it forward to the next person. The impact just reaches so far and so wide, doesn't it? And I love the way you gave so many shout outs to incredible women.
I had to, and amazing, and I've missed loads as well.
Yeah, for anyone who didn't get a mention, I'm sure they would have been in your thoughts as well. You have to, like, when we post your announcements of this episode, you can tag them all. and you. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Katie. You've been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you all next time. Bye for now. Bye, Katie.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Inspiring Women in CX podcast with me, Claire Muscat. Before I wrap up, here's a quick update on Katie's journey. Following the recording of this episode, Katie's job search ended on a high note, as she's now the Chief Operating Officer at Favela. Congratulations, Katie. If you enjoyed this episode and you don't already, please do drop us a like and subscribe to our channel. The bigger the following, the bigger the impact we can create on our mission to amplify the voices of women working in CX and technology. Well, that's all for now. See you next time.